Good afternoon. The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach.
That was the First Lady of the United States, walking up to a microphone she summoned the press to in the middle of an active war with Iran to announce that she is not Jeffrey Epstein's victim. Nobody asked, nobody accused her, and yet here we are.
Devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings. Numerous fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been circulating on social media for years now. Be cautious about what you believe. These images and stories are completely false.
Today, a Friday afternoon in April, America is in the early days of a war with Iran. The President of the United States is, by his own admission, sitting in war meetings. The news cycle is consumed by military strategy, international fallout, and what comes next for American troops and allies abroad. And then, at 2:30 in the afternoon, Melania Trump, the First Lady, summons the White House press pool. Not a written statement, not a spokesperson, not a tweet. She physically calls journalists to a room and stands in front of cameras. And what does she talk about? Jeffrey Epstein. She says, and I want you to really hear this, the lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. She says she was never on his plane, never visited his island. Her name never appeared in court documents. She has never been accused of a crime. She is not his victim. She is not a witness. Now, here is the question that every single journalist in that room was thinking, and that Nicole Wallace on MSNBC asked out loud, and that I am asking you right now. Who accused Melania Trump of any of those things? The answer is nobody. Not officially, not in court, not in a deposition, not in a credible news report that landed in the last 24 hours. So why is she saying this? And why today, of all days? Let me be direct. This press conference was one of the most politically incoherent moves we have seen from this White House in a long time. And that is saying something. Point one, you don't hold a press conference to deny something nobody is publicly accusing you of. This is politics 101. When a politician makes a sweeping, on-camera denial, especially one this specific, they are either responding to something that is about to become public, or they are spectacularly bad at crisis communications. There is no third option. Think about it from a pure messaging standpoint. Before Melania walked into that room, how many Americans were sitting at home wondering whether she had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? The number was small. It was the kind of fringe speculation you find in comment sections and dark corners of the internet. After she walked into that room and said, "I was never on his plane, I never visited his island, my name has never appeared in court documents," she handed every outlet in the country a brand new Epstein story with her face on it. She took a whisper and turned it into a headline. Point 2. She directly undermined her own husband's messaging. This is the part that should make your jaw drop if you understand how the Trump White House has operated on this issue. Donald Trump has been very clear. When CNN's Caitlin Collins asked him about Epstein, he didn't just decline to answer. He scolded her for asking. He said it was time for the country to move on. His administration has slow-walked the Epstein file releases. His acting attorney general announced just days ago that the DOJ is not moving forward on any part of the Epstein investigation. The White House has treated the entire Epstein saga as a nuisance, a hoax, a distraction, something to be buried. And then his wife walks out and calls for a public hearing with Epstein's survivors. She didn't whisper it. She didn't bury it in a prepared statement. She said, on camera, on the record, in front of the press, that Epstein's victims deserve to be heard, publicly. That is a 180-degree reversal of everything this administration has stood for on this issue. It is not a small thing. Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia, the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, pointed this out immediately. His committee has been asking for exactly this kind of hearing for months and has been stonewalled every single time. Chairman Comer won't schedule it. The DOJ won't cooperate. And now the First Lady has publicly endorsed what the opposition party has been demanding. What is going on inside that building? Point 3. Donald Trump says he didn't know she was going to do this. This is perhaps the most alarming detail of all. When reporter Jackie Alemany called the president directly, and he picked up mid-war meeting, he told her he had no prior knowledge of what Melania was about to say. He then repeated that he had to go, and right before hanging up, he said she didn't know him, apparently referring to Epstein. Let me pause on this for a moment. The President of the United States, currently navigating an active military conflict with a foreign nation, had no idea that his wife was about to summon the press and deliver a dramatic on-camera statement about Jeffrey Epstein. He found out when a reporter called him about it. That is not normal. That is not a coordinated communication strategy. That is something else entirely. And we don't know what that something else is yet. Stephanie Grisham, who served as Melania's chief of staff and press secretary in the first term, was contacted after the statement. And what she said is telling. Whatever the motivation was for the First Lady doing this, on this day, in this format, it must have been something serious. Because Melania Trump doesn't hold impromptu press conferences. She doesn't seek out the cameras. She doesn't invite this kind of scrutiny unless something has pushed her to the point where she felt she had no other option. What was that something? We do not know. Point 4, the lack of specificity is deafening. Go back and look at the statement Melania gave. She references images and stories that are completely false. She says lies are being spread. She speaks of individuals who are lying about her. Who are these individuals? What images? What stories? What specifically is she refuting? She never says. This is the journalistic black hole at the center of this entire episode. You cannot hold a press conference to deny specific allegations without specifying what the allegations are, because the moment you do, without that specificity, you are not closing a story. You are opening one. Every journalist who covered this presser immediately went looking for the images, the stories, the lies she referenced. Most found nothing credible. But now they're looking. Now editors are assigning reporters. Now the word Epstein and Melania Trump are appearing together in headlines across every outlet, left, right, and center. If the goal was to kill a story, this was the single worst way to do it. What does this mean? Here is the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. We are watching what appears to be a fracture, or at minimum, a serious divergence between the President and the First Lady on one of the most explosive topics in American politics. And it happened during a war. When Stephanie Grisham says this must have been driven by something serious, she's right. Melania Trump is not someone who operates impulsively. She is calculated. She is guarded. She avoids the press. For her to do this, there had to be a reason. And that reason, whatever it is, has not been revealed. That means the story isn't over. It's just beginning. There are documents that haven't been released. There are FBI transcripts that survivors say are missing. There are congressional committees that have been stonewalled. There is an acting attorney general who just declared the investigation closed. And now, the First Lady has publicly said, let the victims speak. Something doesn't add up, and it is our job as citizens, as viewers, as people who pay attention, to keep asking why. That's where we leave it today. Not because the story is over, but because right now, those are all the answers we have. If this video gave you something to think about, if it raised questions you didn't have before you clicked play, then this channel is doing its job. Subscribe, share this video. The algorithm rewards engagement, but more importantly, the truth rewards people who keep asking questions. I'll be back when there's more to say. And with this story, there will be more to say. See you then.